Yeah, good. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. I'm Yaoqi, the founder of AltLayer, and previously I was also co-founder, CTO at Zilliqa, and the director of Parity Asia. I'm sort of being doing research around scaling and interoperability solutions since 2014, and today I'm glad to bring like more information about AltLayer for all of you guys. So before we dive into AltLayer, we would like to share about the fundamental problems we want to solve. Actually, the fundamental problem is about the scaling of dApps in the current stage and also for the futures. As we all know, right, for the past 1.5 years, there are a lot of popular NFT and game applications which brought a lot of traffic to the blockchain space. That's super good. But at the same time, it also shows us that the scaling of our existing L1s, L2s probably are not suitable for the applications. Like some examples, as you can see, right? For Yuga Labs, they did some NFT sale like several months ago. And basically, it caused the congestion of Ethereum. At the same time, it also caused a lot of gas fees for the users. And basically, for the users, probably they pay more gas fees than the mint fees. In that case, as you can see, right, due to the high demands of various like the NFT or games. Like these applications are so super popular and they brought a lot of traffic and requests to the L1, L2s. It's good, but at the same time, as you can see, right, apart from the gas wars, at the same time, they also congested the L1 chains or even sometimes called the network store. And this is not just the problem for Ethereum, or it also the problem for a lot of the new L1s, which they claim to have high throughput and low transaction fees. And meanwhile, it's not just for the EVM chains, right? As we can see, nowadays we have a lot of non-EVM chains like WASM chains and the Rust chains, but at the same time, they also couldn't handle such huge traffic in a short period of time. And that sort of the fundamental problem we observed for the past few months, and that's sort of the fundamental problem we would like to solve at AltLayer. As we can see, right, there are a bunch of the popular applications, and they really deserve some like high scalable like sort of solutions for them to handle the requests and the traffic from the like millions of users. And based on the observation, right, AltLayer, our core proposition actually is to provide this elastic scaling layer for these dApps and to handle the surge in requests or surge in traffic for short period of time. Meanwhile, we also would like to enable not just the EVM chains, but also the non-EVM chains with such a scaling solution and to provide like versatile execution environment for them. It's both EVM and WASM compatible. Meanwhile, as you can see, right, these days we have a lot of applications and then demand not just EVM execution environment, but also WASM execution environment. In that case, as I just mentioned, right, we provide both execution environment for them. In short, as you can see from this slide, right, we provide these application-specific scaling layers. Or in short, it's really like application-specific rollup for different applications in different ecosystems. Some metrics you can see from this, right? So it's we can provide really short block time with high throughput, meanwhile the gas fee very low. Apart from that, it's also like multi-VM compatible, and meanwhile, it's quite decentralized with our ubiquitous verification mechanism. Yeah, I will elaborate more one by one later. And the first thing, right, we need to think about like if we provide such like highly scalable solution for the application, right, what kind of things the application they want? The first thing probably they want a dedicated execution environment. It was proved true for the past few months, as we can see, right? For X Infinity, at the beginning, they sort of deployed their contracts and the games on Ethereum, but due to the high gas fees and also like the low throughput, they move to their own like Ronnie chain. And recently, we all know, right, for DYDX, at the beginning, they like adopted like the Starware for their layer 2, but later they moved to another like solution, their own chain, to really handle the high throughput and also to provide a better user experience for large amount of users. Actually, the root cause for different applications right now, or probably in the future, to choose the dedicated execution environment is really because that, as we all know, right, in theory, for a single blockchain or even for a single server, there's a theoretical limit for it to handle the requests or traffic from all different applications. In theory, it's just not possible for a single like server to handle like probably millions of applications or even trillions of requests at the same time. Yeah, in that case, like as we can see, right, either in Web 2 or Web 3, we need like sort of a different chains to handle different applications. And probably in the future, we need some dedicated execution environment for all these popular applications to handle their millions or even tons of millions requests from the users. Yeah, in that case, I call it like divide and conquer. Instead of hosting all the applications on single chain, probably we can just have dedicated execution environment for the applications like in different scenarios. Yeah, in that case, either we have a general purpose like L2s or rollups for the DeFi application, or we can have a dedicated application layer for some particular applications like DYDX or games like X Infinity. And so at AltLayer, we are building this flash layering technique, as we all know, right, for these popular applications in the future, right? We would like to provide a very customized and convenient execution environment for them. The good thing for us and the flash layering technique is that the developer just need to click a bunch of buttons, and then our protocol can automatically spin off a dedicated rollup for you. And at the same time, for the developers, right, you just need to deploy contracts, Solidity contracts on the layer, and then the users can interact with the contract on this layer. So at the end of the leasing period, right, the protocol will automatically roll up the states back to the selected L1s. Like one example I elaborate here is about the NFT sale, right? We all know that for a lot of popular NFTs, and typically it attracts like millions of users or requests for a short period of time, probably a few hours, right? Then for the developers, actually, it can just like spin off a flash layer and then deploy the contract, the NFT mint contract on the layer. And then the layer will handle like probably millions of requests for a few hours. And at the end of the sale, the protocol automatically roll up the states and also NFTs to L1s like Ethereum. So then people can directly trade these NFTs on Ethereum. So yeah, that's something we can provide at AltLayer. It's a flash layer. Basically, we provide a short-lived like rollup for some particular applications. As I mentioned, right, particularly for NFT project, we have a dedicated one-stop solution, as you can see, right? For this layer, it has a lot of like fancy features, like it can be first come, first serve, and meanwhile, it provides a fast deployment for the developers. And meanwhile, you can choose what kind of L1s you want to like sort of return your states or NFTs to. And meanwhile, like by the end of this month, we will launch like sort of showcase of our flash layer by minting our OG batch. If you're interested, you can try it out. And particularly, right, there are a bunch of features we can provide compared to some NFT solutions on L1. Apart from like high throughput, low transaction fee mint experience, we can also provide like various support like the mint site whitelisting and like various metadata support. And in that case, right, for NFT project, if you want to do your mint to handle like probably millions of requests without congesting any L1s, probably you can have a try of AltLayer and the flash layer. So in that case, like everything will be automatic, and in the end, the NFT will be like returned back to the selected L1s. Yeah, apart from this automation of setting up application-specific rollup, right? Like for dApps or the developers, you also want to know, like with this layer, what kind of stuff we can do? Is it like sort of EVM compatible, or what kind of special, like when we deploy the contracts or applications on this layer? The first thing, as we all know, right, in the current blockchain space, probably over 90% of the applications are developed in Solidity. So the EVM support is very important. At AltLayer, and we provide this rollup, and it's fully EVM compatible. That means if you already deployed your contract or applications on Ethereum or any EVM chains, without any changes, you can just either port or redeploy the contracts on the dedicated layer. And it's fully EVM compatible. Meanwhile, since like we are targeting the future Web3, right? Right now, we all know like a lot of DeFi applications, NFT applications are quite like sort of suitable using like Solidity, but in the future, like for the upcoming like new zero knowledge proof libraries, they are not like compatible with Solidity or EVM. Meanwhile, there are a bunch of games and metaverse SDKs, as we all know, right? They are probably like developed in C, C++, or Rust. For this library, definitely not something we can have EVM chains. In that case, we also have the WASM support. So for these libraries, we can help the applications or developers compile them into WASM. And later, you can just use your Solidity contracts to call these WASM libraries. So that's why we call it a versatile execution environment. So it's not just for the current DeFi and IP applications, also for the future, probably social network and e-commerce, or even some games and metaverse applications. We would like to support them to use either Solidity or the other programming languages. Apart from that, as I mentioned at the beginning, right? We have large layering technique and also the versatile execution environment. Meanwhile, we also fully embrace the decentralization of the blockchain space. So that means we decouple the sequencer of typical rollup solutions into multiple roles. And we have our like block producer with multiple nodes. And in that case, like we can avoid single point failure. At the same time, can mitigate the censorship issues of the existing L2 protocols. And meanwhile, we have all different types of light clients. That means for different users or developers, actually they can build applications by verifying a lot of the logic and even the latest block or transactions from their browsers. That sort of really make the entire protocol to be very decentralized, because like every user or developer, they can easily verify the latest block from their browsers and can easily deploy the light client in their own environment. Meanwhile, right, with such like sort of ubiquitous verification mechanism, for developers or application, they can choose their trust at a different level. For example, if they feel that the block producing part is trustworthy, so they can immediately accept the like sort of the latest block at the execution level, and then the latest it can be less than 1 or 2 seconds. Meanwhile, as I just mentioned, right, if they already deploy the light clients at their own environment, then they can also verify latest block and do all the verification themselves. No need to wait for the sort of the end of challenge period. Meanwhile, for some like highly like sort of sensitive application like exchanges, they probably still want to make sure everything like settled on the L1, and then they can just wait for the end of the rollup stage. This is the overall architecture we have. As I just mentioned, right, we decouple the single sequencer into multiple roles. As an aggregator, you can treat it as a load balancer. We have multiple these aggregators which are optional, but at the same time, if there are a lot of these traffic and requests, we definitely need some load balancer. That's the aggregator's job. And after that, we have the block producer. Basically, We have multiple block producers to precise the transactions, generate blocks. And after that, we also have the verifiers to verify and upload the Merkle rule hash to the L1. Meanwhile, sometimes, right, for the rollup, probably there's some wrong transactions, so we need the fraud proof and also settlement of the disputes on L1. The verifiers will also become the challenger at that time and submit the fraud proof and challenge the existing sort of crannies of the block. And we have the sort of full-fledged implementation of the fraud proof, so the L1 can really do the settlement of the disputes between the verifiers and also the challengers. As you can see, right, probably this is one of the most decentralized rollup architecture compared to some existing ones. And definitely we embrace the decentralization and try to make it as sort of decentralized as possible. We started the project since last December with a lot of blockchain veterans in the blockchain space, and together with me and also the other partners. And we are very grateful to have a lot of the well-known backers in this space, like Polychain Bear Capital Jump. I mean, also some good angels, Blarge, Sean, Gavin, Ryan Ken. And with their support, right, we've already delivered a bunch of the implementation of the components. And meanwhile, we also have the internal testnet running. And at the end of this month, we will have the very first sort of showcase of our Flash layer with the OG Mint event. To build this amazing protocol for different applications, we definitely need a very strong and solid team. Apart from me, we also have another around 20 people from working in technical development or BD or ecosystem, and we gathered all the great people from a lot of the well-known and famous projects in the blockchain space. Roadmap-wise, we've already achieved a bunch of milestones, and this year we hope to have full-fledged roll-up for different chains. I mean, we try to connect to as many chains as possible. Probably right? Right now we have some L2 solutions, and they can sort of do the roll-up to the EVM chains, but at the same time, apart from the EVM chains, we know that for WASM chain, they also need scaling solutions. So we try to have the support for both EVM and non-EVM chains this year. Another mention is about by the end of this month, we will showcase the Flash layer for the NFT project. So if you're interested, you can just try out this OG badge NFT mint stuff, so you can see the seamless user experience for the users. And meanwhile, for developers, you can also try out the setup of our Flash layer. So as I explained, right? So at AltLayer, we are providing the Flash layering technique to quickly spin off the application-specific rollup. And meanwhile, we also provide both EVM and a WASM compatible execution environment together with some decentralization of different components. So we really want to provide a really seamless and developer and user-friendly scaling solution for applications not nowadays, but also the application in the future Web3 world. That's all about my sharing. Thanks. Any questions?
Any question?
Yes.
In terms of NFT, could this solution work not only in the NFT minting process, but for example, if I would have an NFT collection, could I kind of buy this solution also in terms of sales, for example, on different marketplaces, for example, in terms of avoiding high gas fees?
Yeah, so the FT showcase is just one example. So we definitely support the short-lived flash layering or rollup solution. But meanwhile, as you mentioned, right, we also support the long-lived rollup solution. That means probably for some games, right? Games or metaverse or some social network application, they really need a dedicated layer for them probably for years. In that case, we can also provide a full-fledged rollup solution for them. So you can host probably, as you mentioned, right, a marketplace or even some game logic or even more complex. I would say like directive exchange, all different features on this dedicated rollup. It's perfect fine. Yeah, it's perfect fine. It just like really depends on the requirements from the application and developers. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Can users withdraw their assets before the whole rollup settles to L1?
Yes, we have yeah. So the FT is one like sort of scenario, and at the same time you can withdraw or deposit assets from L1 to the layer anytime. It's just like for the short-lived one, we will have like some deterministic time, probably the end of the sale. We will like roll up the states, every state to the L1. But for some like particular like long-lived rollup, it's just a standard L2. Like you can just withdraw, deposit assets at any time you want. Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. This is a brilliant solution for the problem we have today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Undoubtedly. With the rapid growth of ZK rollups in general and
yes.
Stackware and Stacknet specifically, where's the space for AltLayer a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now, like we are quite like practical, I would say. So we already have the implementation for optimistic rollup for the solution, right? So in the future, because we have a bunch of researchers in our team, we observe the progress of ZK rollup carefully. And then it means that basically in the future, if ZK rollup can be fully EVM compatible and can really provide the high throughput, we can definitely provide the option for the developers. So you can treat like AltLayer as this kind of service provider. Like for developers, right? If you need, like for example, the rollup to like different chains like Ethereum, Polygon, or BSC, or even Cosmos chains, we can provide the support for you. But meanwhile, in the future, if you want your rollup to be optimistic rollup, we probably have 1 or 2 like sort of options for you. And meanwhile, if it's ZK rollup very mature, we can also provide the option for the developers. But definitely there's a cost. So that's why in our like white paper we mentioned that our approach is quite budget oriented. For some project, they have a lot of budget. Probably they want to have everything to be on Ethereum. Then it's good. Like, but at the same time, for some projects and probably for some games, they don't want everything to be on Ethereum or L1s, right? Then in that case, we can definitely have a different DA layer. And then in that case, we can save some cost for them. And the same case, like if they really want high throughput, probably we'll provide the optimistic rollup option for them. But if they really want ZK and with some special features, probably privacy features, and we can also provide ZK in the like in the near future. But it really depends on the demands and requirements from the developers. We will just make sure like all the options and the implementation is ready for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.